We're the Brown-Forman group. I'm Hannah, and I have with me Eric and Abby. And our topic for this paper and presentation is the lone wolf versus the pack mentality. It's a study of productivity fluctuations between individualistic contributions and team-focused dynamics. So walking you through an agenda today, we have for you the research question, why the research itself is important, the hypothesis and methods we used, results, key takeaways, application, and the additional supporting research, and we'll conclude. So talking about what the research question is that we investigated, we looked at two different things, mainly what factors influence individual productivity in group settings, and if the individual's role in their personal social networks does or does not have an impact in their performance in group settings. So why is this important? Why is this the question that we decided to investigate? Well, you're going to be in group situations regardless of what industry or job function you choose, and to optimize your performance in those groups, you want to know what motivates an individual to contribute to said group. So we found that groups do have more problem-solving resources, obviously, than individuals. So in their ability to capitalize on this collective wisdom, you're able to theoretically accomplish more in a group than you are as an individual. Additionally, there is a paradox between selfish individualistic goals and group-based achievements. So it's very easy, as you can see with free rider syndrome and social loafing, to shirk your group responsibilities in favor of doing something maybe that you're personally responsible for in a workplace setting. But we did find that some analyses conceptualize small group cooperation as a social dilemma and view groups that are cooperative and work together as a puzzle. So there still aren't clear reasons as to why people work well in groups or why some groups fail. And we attempt to examine some of those social network-based reasonings in this paper and presentation. Additionally, this topic again is important for businesses to understand when they think about how they form groups and the different facets that they put in place to make sure the group succeeds. We did find a study conducted by Wu in 2010 that basically proved a correlation that was positive between network positions and performance. So that's one of the reasons we looked at network position as a potential indicator for successful group success. The work performance was studied after the introduction of an expertise search engine, and they found that the primary mechanism driving work performance was the informational advantage of structurally diverse networks, basically just meaning that those who had wider ranging, more deep connections in their social network were more apt to perform higher. And now I'll pass it off to Eric to talk a little bit more about our question.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, there were four main hypotheses that were tested here. So going down the list, the first one was that centrality in the advice network would be positively related to individual job performance. So just quickly to go over that. The advice network is basically your network between everyone within your group that you help each other from. It's the positive side of the network within that group. So then moving on to hypothesis 2, which is centrality in the hindrance network, will be negatively related to individual job performance. So as advice is kind of the positive side of the network, your hindrance would be that negative. That's any kind of sabotage you might have between the group. Just any kind of form you're really not getting along that might, of course, hinder your job. Hypothesis 3 is advice at network density will be positively related between group performance, and centralization in the advice networks will be negatively related between group performance. So what that's basically going over is just the amount of both of those in the first two hypotheses will have a direct implication on whether how well, positively or negatively, the group will do overall. And the last hypothesis, the hindrance network density, will be negatively related to the group performance. And kind of like hypothesis 3, talking about advice network density, this is the hindrance network density, saying again the amount total found within the group will have a direct effect on just how well the group performs. So next we have the research methods that were used. Total, there were 190 diverse participants. They were represented by 5 different organizations. They were separated into 38 teams. Originally there were around 42 teams at the start of the study, I believe, but after some breakdown between the researchers found necessary, such as hitting a certain level of response rate or the team wasn't admitted to go further along in the test, it was shortened down to 38 teams. So the methods used varied from surveys at the very beginning to kind of get a general understanding of the networks within the team so that the researchers can kind of draw on that and get the webbing for each individual and the team as a whole, to later on there were observations that were submitted by the team's managers to assess kind of individual performance as well as the team performance as they saw it. They could get a good insight on that. In addition to this, the participants were examined based on their roles within the groups. And Sparrow was really looking at the performance of the participation based on whether they played a central or decentralized role within the group. So really, were they the main kind of worker within the group? Were they the main communication point between everyone? Or were they just standoffish, and have that really affect their success levels? So if you look at the research results, I'm going to go down this based on the hypotheses that I originally talked about. So in support of hypothesis 1, centrality in the advice network was positively related to individual and in-role and extra-role performance, and this was confirmed at a 99% confidence level. So if you see the two betas that are given for in-role and extra-role, they were both positively related, and in-role is explained by 18%, extra-role explained by 23%. And just quickly, because I don't think I've hit on this yet, in-role is essentially your job within the group, and then extra-role is any extra jobs that you're doing that are outside what your technical job description would be, but you still feel the need to do anyways to kind of progress the group forward. Moving on to the second one, in support of hypothesis 2, hindrance networks was negatively related to the individual role and extra role performance, confirmed at a 99% confidence level. So you see for in-role is negative 0.33 and extra role is negative 0.46. So they have a really high correlation, a really high kind of cause for why groups seem to fail, or why individuals seem to fail within that in-role and extra role. Okay, moving on to the next slide, we have hypothesis 3. Now this is the one odd one out of the group because it was actually not supported, as neither advice, density, or centralization factors were found to be statistically significant at a 95% confidence level, and in regards to having the respective positive or negative effects on the group. So this is really the only one that wasn't proven one way or the other. With, I believe that it was found statistically significant at a 94% level, but for our kind of measures, we didn't find that to be good enough for us to really pass on. So, and in support of hypothesis 4, the parameter estimate for hindrance network density was negative and statistically significant at the 95% confidence level. And you can see here the hindrance network density was negative 0.36. And this was also a little different as the other ones, because the first two were found statistically significant at the 99% confidence level, but this one was only at the 95% confidence level, but the researchers still found it was good enough for them to pass on. And now I'm going to talk about some research limitations. There were 3 main limitations that were found to be present within the test. The first one is there might have been some lenience bias in the group performance ratings that were given by the group effectiveness is a reflection of the manager's own performance. So just kind of hit on that. That's basically saying that since the managers had the job of kind of divvying out how well the team performed, whether in their success or failures as well as individuals, they might have had some biases there, because you aren't going to want to report that your team did awful and they failed in every aspect. That's going to make you look bad as a manager. So of course, even if they did do bad, you might put them down, I don't know, 6 or 7 out of 10 and move on from there just to make yourself not seem as bad, since technically you were the one managing the group. The second one is the theoretical perspective implies that network structure precedes individual performance. This one's just basically looking at the level that they went into the study looking at. So some of the correlation found was due to factors not considered or outside the perspective. For example, it's possible that high performers would be sought out for advice by coworkers, thus giving them a more centralized position within the team network, which is opposed to what the researchers originally went in looking at, which was that these team members would be high performers because they already had this pre-established high network, which is kind of just vice versa from each other. And the last limitation was that the study employed a single item measured of hindrance networks. So since there was only one really test for that hindrance network overall, they kind of felt that it might not have been good enough for the group size. Originally in the past, for any other studies that have been done over this topic, there only was one hindrance network, but the total observations and the total study groups within that have been much larger than what was used here. And they just kind of wanted to throw this in there to say that, hey, we realized that we have that smaller group, and there might be some factors that we're overlooking, and they just want to really point that out and make sure everyone can see that, okay?
Okay, so Hannah went over the research question and the importance of this type of research, and Eric went over the study that we decided to look at as well as its results, and now I'm going to talk about how we can apply everything that we've learned thus far. So the key takeaways today are that overall, group work has been proven to be much more productive and reach higher potentials than individual work. But it's important to keep in mind that group work is most successful when it has team members who are centralized in their personal social groups as well. The way a team is built is directly linked to how successful that team will perform, and the members of a group who are usually leaders and help lead the group would most likely be successful if working individually as well as working on a team. So how do we apply these learned principles? First, we should recognize that group work should definitely be promoted in organizations, as teams have been proven to be more successful than individuals, but it is definitely important to build that team correctly to ensure that the team is performing as optimally as possible, as well as understand what makes a team successful before assuming that teamwork in a group setting is the best method opposed to individual work for that specific group. So how do we build the right team? First, we start off by making sure that we are recruiting strong members, and by strong members, I mean members who serve centralized roles in their independent social networks. Making sure that team is aligned around a unified mission and a compelling direction, and making sure that all team members really understand the end goal of the team. Promoting informal relationships among team members to make sure that inclusion is felt by all members of the team. And lastly, ensuring that the team has a strong structure. So this means not only a hierarchical structure where we have a set leader and all of the team members know who that leader is, but also looking at a diverse structure. So that can be in terms of superficial diversity, where we look at gender and ethnicity, and also a more deeper diversity where we look at people adding different perspectives to the group. So how do we motivate the team? So firstly, it's really important to ensure that we are determining what motivates team members from the start of the team, and after we determine what motivates those team members, trying to align those motivations with the end goals of the project, just to ensure that these team members really want to reach that end goal and that they actually feel really inspired to reach a conclusion. And as we've learned in our management class, it's important to really remember what drives that motivation. So the 3 factors that we thought were very important were the need for affiliation, the need for achievement, and the need for power. So ensuring that all team members have these needs satisfied, just to ensure that they are performing as optimally as possible. And we also looked at some additional supporting research in addition to our study. So one person that we looked at was Richard Hackman. He studied in the field of organizational behavior for over 30 years, and his research has concluded that teams are more successful and more productive than individual work when they encompass a few critical qualities. So those critical qualities are having a unified direction, and shared common goals, and lastly, having the ability to adapt to changing environments and having the ability to really be flexible with one another. So in conclusion, we have found that teamwork is superior to individual work, and we mean that in terms of productivity and potential quality of work. And individuals who are centralized in their social networks tend to be group leaders. So successful group leaders would likely be successful as working in an individual setting as well. And the keys to building a successful team are having central goals, promoting those informal relationships among group members, having a solid structure, and having motivated team members. Thank you.
All right.
So do we have any questions?
Sure. So based on your experience with MBA, do you think the group work has been more beneficial than the individual work?
I'd like to think so. I mean, a lot of the things we've been doing in this program so far have required like a group aspect. None of this by any means the quality of work we've achieved do I think that I could have done on my own. There's just no way it could have been done. Just as far as, I mean, various things, as far as diversity in here, everyone has a different background that I wouldn't have been able to look at these different things from these different perspectives and been able to get the same outcomes that we were able to get. I would have looked at it from my way of thinking, and who knows what I would have ended up with, but it would have been nowhere near as good as what the end goal that we were able to achieve, just all working together.